Hey guys, it's Miss Johnson and I'm here to bring you our notes for Unit 3 Learning Target 3. This is our third day of Unit 3. We're in that factoring unit where we are taking apart a product. We're going to look specifically at quadratics that have an x to the second power and talk about how we can split that quadratic expression apart into its two factors. So that's what we're doing today. So far we've talked about GCF, which we're going to use that concept today. And then we've also talked about setting up that factor x. So we're going to use that concept today as well. Okay, so let's kick off our notes here. All right, so if you are a step-by-step person and you like to follow a process, here are some steps laid out for you. So the steps for factoring using our reverse box. The first thing that we're going to do is set up our x and solve it just like we did yesterday in our notes. So look at your quadratic, find the ABC, set up your x, find those two factors that multiply to the AC, add to the B. Okay. Then with those two factors, we're going to fill in a box. We're going to set up a box and we're going to fill it in with the factors that we have. And then we're going to pull out our GCFs from each side. And then we're going to write out our factors that we get from pulling out those GCFs. All right, so write the quadratics in factored form. So the first thing that I need to do is to set up my factor x here. So I've got that a equaling 2, b equaling 7, c equaling 3. So if I set up a factor x, and I'm going to do it kind of small off to the side, 2 times 3 is 6, and the middle term is a 7. So the two things that multiply to 6 and add to 7 are 6 and 1. 6 times 1 gives me 6. 6 plus 1 gives me 7. Remember, it's a product of 6 and a sum of 7. Okay, so this 6 and 1 is how I'm going to split off this middle term. I am going to keep my 2x squared and I'm going to keep my 3, but I'm going to split off this middle term into a 6x and a 1x. So now my expression looks like 2x squared plus 6x plus 1x plus 3. So I kept the 3, I kept the 2x squared, but I split off that 7x into the two things that I found over here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set up a box for all these terms, okay? I want to stick these 4 terms here into a box because that's going to help me organize my factors. So set yourself up a 2x2 box, okay? This is kind of like the same box that we used back in Unit 2 when we would multiply things in, except that now we're starting with the insides. I have these 2x squared, 6x, 1x, and 3. I have those things on the inside, and I'm working to find the outsides. So if you think back to those boxes that we multiplied into in the last unit, now we're just doing the reverse. We're starting with the products on the inside, and we're finding the GCFs on the outside. Okay, so now I need to look at each row and column and find the GCF. So if I look at 2x squared and 6x, my GCF that comes out of that row is a 2 and an x. And that comes from that GCF lesson that we did in Learning Target 1, where we talked about pulling out the greatest common factor from each of two terms. If I look at this second row down, from a 1x and a 3, all I can take out there is a 1. Okay, now if I look at this first column, the 2x squared and the 1x, all I can take out there is an x. And then this second column over, 6x and 3, all I can take, or what I can take out there is a 3. So here's where the factoring part comes into play. My two factors are out here on the outsides now. If I write them in factored form, they look like this. I have 2x plus 1, and then in another set of parentheses, x plus 3. That is the factored form of my expression, okay? So I started with my products on the inside, and I took the GCFs out on the outside to get my factored form. If you think back to Unit 2, when we talked about multiplying these things together, we started with this, did this, and got to that. Okay, now we're just moving the other direction. We're going down to here and then down to there. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2 and try this again. Okay, again, the first thing that I'm going to do, let's identify our A, B, and C. I've got an A of 3, a B of 16, and a C of 5. So in my factor X, I've got 3 times 5, which is 15, and the bottom is 16. So two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to 16 are 15 and 1. Okay, now remember, these two things are going to get x's on them, and they're going to split that 16 apart. So you've got 3x squared plus 15x plus 1x plus 5. And those are the things that are going to fill in your box. So here's my box. I've got 3x squared, 15x, 1x, and 5 for my terms. Now let's find those GCFs out front. So the GCF of 3x squared and 15x is 3x. That's the greatest common factor that comes out of those two terms. The GCF of 1x and 5 is just a 1. There's nothing that comes out of 1 and 5, and there's no x with the 5, so all I have there is a 1. Now let's look at the first column. 3x squared and 1x, that's going to be an x. And the second column, 15x and 5, is a 5. So if I write these things out, here's my factors. If I write them out in factored form, they look like this. 3x plus 1 and x plus 5. That's my factored form. All right, so again, I started with this trinomial. This is a trinomial here. I started with this quadratic expression, and I ended in its factored form. And all that means is that I took apart the product, this product right here, that gave me that answer. So this is the original product. If I wanted to put these two back into a box method, if I put these two back on the outside and multiplied to get my terms on the inside, I would get back to this original expression. Let's try the next one. So in number 3, I have 1x squared, 8x, and 7. So if I set up my factor x, 1 times 7 is 7. Bottom term is 8. My two numbers are 7 and 1. 7 times 1 gives me 7. 7 plus 1 gives me 8. So that's going to split that 8x into 7x plus 1x. So I've got x squared plus 7x plus 1x plus 7 at the end. And these are the 4 terms that I'm going to put inside the box. So let's put our products inside the box. That's x squared, 7x, 1x, and 7. And now I'm going to find those GCFs out front for my factored form. So the GCF of x squared and 7x is just an x. The GCF of 1x and 7 is just a 1. This column, the GCF of x squared and x, is still just an x. And this column on the right, 7x and 7, has a GCF of 7. So my factored form looks like x plus 1 times x plus 7. Both of those two things go in parentheses. That's factored form. Some of you may be wondering, do I have to write this one first and then this one second? And the answer to that is no, you don't. You could write these as x plus 7 and then x plus 1. And the good old commutative property tells us that we can multiply in any order and get the same result. So since I flipped the order of that factor with that factor, I'm still going to get the same answer. All right, let's try the next one. So I have an A term of 1, a B term of 5, and a C term of 6. So when I plug that in, 1 times 6 is 6, bottom term is 5. Multiplying things to get to 6 and adding them to get to 5. 6 and 5 is always tricky. This is a hard one. It's an easy one to mix up. This happens to be 2 and 3. A lot of people want to jump to the 6 and the 1, but that would be wrong because 6 plus 1 gives me 7, not 5. So be careful with 6 and 5. They're super small numbers, but they're deceivingly tricky. So 2 times 3 gives me 6, and 2 plus 3 gives me 5. Okay, So now let's split that middle off. So that gives me x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. And again, that's the point of the factor x. The point of the factor x is to split off this middle term, okay? Because that middle term is where I had like terms that I combined. So we have to strategically take those like terms apart. But in order to figure out what we need to take those like terms apart into, we use this bad boy. Okay, so here's my box. And I put those terms inside. X squared, 2x, 3x, 6. All right. So my GCF's out front. So I have x and 2x. I'm sorry, x squared and 2x. That's an x. My GCF of 3x and 6 is going to be a 3. My GCF of x squared and 3x is going to be another x, and my GCF of 2x and 6 is going to be a 2. So if I write this out, I've got x plus 2 and x plus 3. And again, it doesn't matter what order those factors are in. As long as you keep that together and that together, they can go in any order. Let's try the next one. So let's take a look at 3x squared minus 1x minus 2. So my a is 3, my b is negative 1, and my c is negative 2. So inside the factor x, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and my b term is negative 1. So the two numbers that are going to give me a product of negative 6, but a sum of negative 1 are going to be 2 and negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1. All right, so if I split off that negative 1x into 2x and negative 3x, it looks like this. 3x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 2. So here's the box. That's 3x squared, 2x, negative 3x, negative 2. All right. So now let's look at our GCFs. So the GCF of 3x squared and 2x is just going to be an x. Let's talk about this GCF of negative 3x and negative 2. So there's nothing in common between the negative 3 and the negative 2, and there's no x here. So a lot of people might jump to the fact that this is just a 1, but I want you to pay attention to the fact that they both have a negative. That is a piece in common. Since they both have a negative, I need to take that negative out. So I'm going to have a negative 1 for my GCF here because I need to pull this negative out with my factor of 1. Now, if I look at each column, this is 3x squared and negative 3x. One has a negative and one does not, so you're not going to pull the negative out here because the negative's not in common here. But you do have a 3 and an x. Same thing over here. I have a 2x and a negative 2. I'm not going to take out the negative because the negative's not common. It's only in the bottom one. But they do have a common factor of 2, so I can take out a 2. So my factored form looks like x minus 1. This is a minus now because I took this negative out with it. And the other factor is 3x plus 2. That's my factored form. All right, let's take a look at number 6. I've got an a factor, or an a term of 2, a b of 9, and a c of negative 5. So inside my factor x, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Middle term is positive 9. So the two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to positive 9 are going to be negative 1 and positive 10. Negative 1 times 10 is negative 10. Negative 1 plus 10 is positive 9. So split off that 9x. That's 2x squared. Again, you keep the first and the last. So 2x squared minus 1x plus 10x minus 5. So here's my box. I've got 2x squared, negative 1x, 10x, sorry, I made my box kind of small, and negative 5. And again, this is the same thing that we did in Unit 2 when we would multiply binomials. We're just doing it in reverse. We're starting with the inside products and we're taking those apart. Okay, so let's look at each row in each column. This first row, the only thing I can take out of that first row is an x. This second row, the only thing I can take out of that second row is a 5. 10 and 5 have a common factor of 5. Let's look at this first column. From 2x squared and 10x, I can take out a 2 and an x. And from this second column, I can't take out a 1, or I can't take anything other than 1. And I can't take out an x because the 5 doesn't have an x, but both terms have a negative, which means it needs to be -1. So that gives me 2x minus 1 times x plus 5. That's my factored form. So this quadratic turned into that factored form. Okay, a couple more practice questions and then we'll be done for today. So here we have 1x squared, 8x and plus 15. That's an a of 1, a b of 8, and a c of 15. So my factor x is 1 times 15, which is 15. Middle term is b. Remember that you want a product of 15 and a sum of 8. So did I say middle term is b? Yes, the middle term is always b. But in this case, the middle term is 8. Hello. Come on, Johnson. So my terms here, product of 15, sum of 8 is going to be 3 and 5. 3 times 5 gives me 15. 3 plus 5 gives me 8. These things are going to get x's, and I'm going to split off this 8 in the middle. I keep that. X squared plus 3x plus 5x, keep that, plus 15. All right. So inside my box, those are my products. My products are x squared, 3x, 5x, and 15. Now let's look at our GCFs. So x squared and 3x, I can take out an x. 5x and 15, I can take out a 5. X squared and 5x, I can take out an x. And 3x and 15, I can take out a 3. So my factored form here is x plus 5, x plus 3. One more time. Here in number 8, I have a 1x squared plus 3x minus 10. So my factor x looks like 1 times -10, which is -10. Middle term is 3. And my two factors are going to be 5 and -2. 5 times -2 is -10. 5 minus 2 is 3. So those things are going to get x's, and I'm going to split off this 3 in the middle. Keep that, keep that. X squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 10. And here we go. Inside the box, I've got x squared, 5x, -2x, and -10. GCFs, x and 5x is just an x. Sorry, x squared and 5x is just an x. -2x minus 10. I can take out a 2. I can also take out a negative. So that's -2. This x squared and -2x, I can take out an x. And 5x minus 10, I can take out a 5. And that's it. And these two things don't have a negative in common, so I'm not going to take out a negative. Same thing here. These two things don't have a negative in common, so I'm not going to take out a negative. So my factored form looks like x minus 2 and x plus 5. All right. That takes us to the end of our notes for today. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you next time. Have a great day.